You know, now it's intolerable. Now it's absolutely intolerable. Hang on a second here. Video. Okay, here we go. Choose virtual background.
It's okay. You know, one of the things about us is that we are fun. So it's like a fun house.
Okay, this is the unfortunate part, is the background's gone, but my hair is still an absolute travesty.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right.
At least you have hair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I think the kidding around is pretty much over.
Okay.
Okay, let me get this on. Okay. All right, there we go. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. Can you hear me okay, Jeremy? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for being here. And I just wanted to welcome Cheryl and Samantha Graff and thank them so much for being here. Before we even start, I just wanted to tell an interesting anecdote. Years ago, I used to help out at the office. I think when I was 15, I asked my dad if I could go to this ski tennis camp after camp. And he said, well, you can, but you have to pay for it. It was $250. And part of the job was cleaning up the back storage room where we kept our for sale signs and, you know, setting up for the office meeting and baking muffins. That didn't last long there. I remember there like a cinder block on the outside and like liquid lava on the inside. So that stopped. But I worked around the office a lot growing up. And I remember when Cheryl transferred to us, I think it was directly from Canada Trust, wasn't it, Cheryl?
It was.
Yeah, and I also worked at Canada Trust many years later. But I remember I had the privilege of listening to Cheryl doing a listing presentation. And it was so natural and so methodical and so well prepared. And it may be the experience being a teacher in her previous career, or it may be just her general organization, but it just really showed me what a true professional is and has continued to do that throughout the decades at Kalles. And, you know, I remember many years later when Samantha joined Cheryl, and they just complement each other so nicely. And family businesses are complicated. You know, I actually, one of the best courses I think I ever took at business school was family business with Michael Kalles. And they make it look so easy and something that can be so challenging. And they really, really bring out the best in one another. So I wanted to thank both of them for being here today. And, you know, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to ask a few questions just to get us warmed up. Cheryl, tell us a little bit about how you transitioned from being a teacher and going into real estate, and then how it was that you moved from a great training company like Canada Trust to Harvey Kalles many decades ago.
I think that I only taught for 2 years. Then I started family. And I think that when I moved here from the States, I had a 4-year degree. But back then you had grade 13. And 1 year went to grade 13, 1 year went to your teacher's college. And then I had 2 years, so I had to go back to school. So I was teaching, and then I went to night school. And I think that's why Glenn's so good. He was so smart. In the womb, he was in university. But from there, just raised the family. Then I went into real estate because my husband had interest in real estate. He actually got his license prior to me getting it. And I thought it would be interesting to take a course because I was always interested in learning. So from there, went into it and kept asking him to join me. And he said, no, see if you like it, see if you like it. Well, a year later, I like it, come. No, you keep doing it. So it was 39 years ago that we reversed roles. He stayed at home, raised the kids, and I went out to real estate. So it was easy for me to do it because I just like not being from here, meeting all the people. And so many of the people that I met became very close, good friends. And that's what I love about the business, is meeting new people. Then working at the Permanent, then Canada Trust, and then I don't know what it went into. I made the decision. I remember sitting in the backyard of your parents' house on Heathcote. I think it was Heathcote.
Yep, 79.
Right? Yeah. And I had a list. Do you remember the list?
Methodical.
I think I had 39 questions on that list that I wanted to know who was responsible for what. And I got the right answers, and I went there, and it's going to be 35 years
Incredible.
at Kalles. Then
Incredible.
Samantha started as a secretary. She did part-time work at Kalles. So she'll tell the rest and the rest is history.
That's amazing. 35 years. And, you know, if you look back, you had, did you say it was 39 questions? If you look back at our admin team, it was really Harvey. So the answer to your question was who does everything? And back then the answer was Harvey to every single question. So Samantha, tell us a little bit about yourself, about how you started out.
Well, I have to be honest, I didn't expect to stay in the business for 25 years. I was at Western, and I graduated thinking I was going to be a psychologist or a speech pathologist. And I didn't quite like bio so much. So I made a decision literally at the end of exams of Western in my third year after just getting a BA in literature. And I decided that I was going to join my mom. So I immediately went, in April, I started the correspondence courses for real estate over the summer. So I did it, and then I did back-to-back all the classes from, I believe it was September. I was done December 5th, 1995. So it was sort of, I thought it was a stepping stone. I really did. I knew my mom was very busy. I also was joining her at a time when the interest rates were coming down from quite a high point. So it was a little bit challenging at the time. And my natural tendency is just to help people. So I sort of went in just thinking, I'm just going to help my mom, and I'll learn different skills. And I thought they'd be transferable skills to whatever I decided to end up doing. But amazing. I just kind of stuck.
You know, it's amazing. You know, I cannot believe when you say it's been 25 years. I remember the day you joined. I remember the day Cheryl joined. So what's the secret? How do you, because you're so different, both of you bring so many different skills to the table. What is the secret of making it work? How do you manage to complement one another and at the same time not trip over one another?
I think it's one word: communication.
Okay. Second word, respect.
Right.
You have to respect. Yeah, you really have to respect one another. It's like any relationship, whether it's a friendship and intimate or a family relationship. The secret ingredients are, as Cheryl said, communication and respect for one another. And, you know, just transparency, which goes into your communication skills.
Right. And that's what I find, you know, because if you think about it, it's a real estate partnership, but of course it's a mother-daughter relationship, which is so sacred. And you want to make sure that you never, and I think Samantha, you said it very well, respect. And I think what I've always noticed, and at the forefront of your mind, has been your mother-daughter relationship first and foremost. And you're incredibly close, leaving real estate aside, just because I happen to know both of you in your relationship. How do you divide the labor effectively? How do you figure out who does what, whether it's being in the middle of a transaction or prospecting or marketing or client communication? How do you do that? I
think over the years, we've realized who's wears the stronger hat, so to speak, in the different skill sets. However, one of the things that we have decided together is that when somebody initiates a new relationship, they're the lead usually, because, for example, if you meet somebody from an open house or someone's introduced to you by ways of a referral source, you become that main contact usually. We have a client, for example, I think we've sold like 6 houses to. We've literally watched the family grow up. And it came off of a postcard way back in Leslie York Mills area in a townhouse. And we've literally moved through so many neighborhoods with this family. And I think I was the original one because the husband tends to reach out to me. And however, don't get me wrong, especially after 6 or 7 transactions, whatever it's been, Cheryl has a very strong relationship with the whole family also. But it was me who was the initial contact. So they seem to just sort of reach out to you if you were the first one.
Got it.
I think we also recognize what strengths we have. Samantha is really good with the social media, and if there's parties or anything, she's the one who's more out there, where, as you know, I'm the one who organizes. She will initiate something or have a lot of ideas, and I implement them. But once I implement them, she's right there to follow through.
Got it.
But it's a balance between the two of us, recognizing the strengths that we both have.
I think you also just have to know, like I said, in it's like any relationship, you just have to know how to dance with one another. You know, if she's taking 2 steps forward, I lean back. Just recently, we did a sale where there were 4 children. It was an estate sale. And, you know, the relationships with certain children with me were maybe stronger, and Cheryl had stronger relationships with others. It's all personalities. Real estate, as you know, and, you know, obviously you know very well too, being in a family business, relationships are based on personalities and people. Everybody comes together organically, and then sometimes with an agenda. And you just have to know what that agenda or that, you know, objection is at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting. I'm happy you brought that up, family business. You know, what I think people don't realize is that family businesses, the expectation of the next generation and the generation to come is actually higher. You know, if you walked into another company, XYZ Realty or XYZ Corporation, they don't know you. You're an employee. And I think what people don't realize is that as you go into a business, if you make a business successful, they say, oh, great. Well, of course, you know, you made it successful. You had a head start, you know, you had, you know, the foundation. And then if it goes the other way and things go sideways, well, look, I mean, with all the opportunity, he screwed it up or she screwed it up. So how do you deal with that? Because you're coming in from, and Cheryl's very modest, but, you know, Cheryl was, you know, top agent in the company, #1 for well over a decade. So here you are coming in 25 years ago. How did you deal with that pressure of being in a situation, Samantha, where you're coming into a scenario of tremendous success? It's not like you're both building together from the ground up and prospecting your way up. You're coming into a foundation of tremendous success.
It's interesting that you bring that up, and I'm sure you can relate to this because I found that a lot of agents just thought it was so easy for me. It's not. Any child of a successful mother, father, or both, or even siblings feel pressure. It's the exact same pressure. My mother's reputation was beyond. She was like the class act. I mean, she's been referred to as an icon in the industry. Any open house I went to, because I was very actively going to agents' open houses in the beginning, and even today, well, before COVID, of course, when I'd go, people, how's your mom? What's your mom doing? Oh, I had the best deal. Your mother's, it's praise after praise after praise. And that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot to live up to. As children in general, we're always trying to live up to our parents' expectations and success. And I had big shoes to fill. And I do remember, I was only 22. And I remember my friends saying to me, you used to be so much fun. I was like, really? I said, I think I'm kind of fun. They're like, you've got a pager beside you. You've got a phone beside you. And you're like this. You're so worried always. Who's looking? And they used to tell me I had a do not enter sign on me because I was so cautious of my social, of what I was doing and putting out there. Never mind, we didn't have Facebook, Instagram, or any of these things. But I knew people were watching me. I knew people knew who I was because all the bench ads. So I was very, very concerned, very worried about any type of negative damage to my mother's reputation. I respected and admired so much what she had done for our whole family. She really is that person who you call and she's there right away, whether it's a friend, a client, family, anything. I mean, I'll never forget, and I'll date myself but good by saying that I was at Don Mills Center and there was a jacket I wanted and I was like, it's kind of expensive. I'm not sure if I should spend it. And I called my mom and she was there in 15 minutes just to let me know you're worth it. Buy
Wow.
it.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Cheryl, here's a question for you, and it goes the other direction. A person like yourself, I always marvel. I walk by your office. I say, I think Cheryl may have moved out. I mean, there's not a paper, there's nothing on her desk. It's so meticulous and so the opposite of my life. I wish I could show you what's happening. I mean, I think you can see in the bookshelves, it sort of tells the tale. But being as organized as you are, how are you able to let go of the reins a bit and provide Samantha that autonomy and independence so that she could spread her wings and really make her own way in the industry with your assistance and guidance?
I think that it comes a point in your life that when your kids say to you and your friends are all saying to you, take the time because you never know what happens, what tomorrow will bring. So you have to really, I live for the day. I don't live very much into the future. I just live for the day because, especially now, with COVID and with friends being the ages that they are. Hi, Ace. How are you doing back there? I just want to say hello. He's got a question.
Ask him a science. Go on the side.
It's okay. It's okay.
Hysterical. I guess you guys now know, you see, with the virtual background, you wouldn't know if I'm working at home or not. Now I think you have a pretty good idea I'm working at home.
But anyway, I think that to let go of the reins, I think Samantha has really sort of put her foot down and says, basically, I can take it from here, and I let her go.
Mm-hmm. It's a two-way street. I always say that delegation is a two-way street because the person who's going to be taking on the responsibility has to prove themselves that they're worthy. And I say that sincerely because there's a lot at stake. And the person who's letting go has to have that trust and has to have that ability. And, you know, I've said with Harvey, and my mom and I talk about this all the time, you know, I'm very, very fortunate. You know, I came into the industry 29 years ago. We were in a desperate recession, losing money hand over fist. And Harvey really turned over the reins. I mean, it was a process of years, but he really gave me the independence and the autonomy to with his tutelage to spread my wings and fly. And I give him a lot of credit to this day. You know, I think and I'm one of those people who I'm involved in every element of the business. Nothing is done without me taking a look at it. I think it would be hard for me to do that. So I give you credit, Cheryl, and Samantha too, for earning that trust. How does it work on a day-to-day basis? When a day begins, how do you structure your day as to what you're going to do? I mean, we're in very unique, strange times right now, but generally.
I don't think there's, and it's funny because I'm somebody who requires structure, but as everyone knows, real estate is the phone rings, you got to go. Today's day is very different than when I started, and especially when Cheryl started. You know, I have to admit that I didn't have as much of a social life for many years in the beginning. I was so fearful of making plans and breaking them. So that was a challenge for me. So the one thing that I found some type of structure in was going to the agents' open houses because they always existed, or we did our own. So there was a block. I think there was always a phone call by like 9 o'clock between Cheryl and I, just, so what's the day like? Like, which houses are you going to see? Or, you know, talking about an email or a text or something like that. But there's a check-in at 9 o'clock for sure, anywhere between 9 and 9:30. There's a check-in. Because I warned her not to call me at 8 anymore. That was like way back when we were growing up. We had to call my mom's parents in Florida before 8 o'clock because it was cheaper. And, you know, again, that's consistency that was brought into our lives. And family values too. You call your grandparents every single morning at 7:45 without fail. Like, even when we're like, I gotta brush my teeth. No, phone, grandparents now.
It's amazing.
And, you know, that also goes along the lines of, you know, as children, we respected our parents and we did what they told us to do. Like, we just did.
Right. But I think you said something that really struck a chord with me, Samantha, in the sense that, you know, expectations. And I think that's something that's very different, this generation of children to our generation. I like what you just said, you know, 7:45 every day, 7 days a week, you call your grandparents. And what ends up happening is after a period of time, it becomes what you do. It becomes a habit, and you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart. And I think if I were to surmise, I would think Cheryl would probably tell you when you were a young kid, you know, that 2 minutes or 5 minutes is 5 minutes in your day, but to them, to your grandparents, it means the world. So make that effort. And I think we can all learn from that on this call, because it's amazing as human beings. And I think we learn more during this time. What seems like a small thing is actually huge, huge, huge impact. And it's amazing how one phone call can change the world. My oldest daughter and my nephew had a campaign. It was called, this is at the very beginning of COVID, and it was called Call Your Grandparents and Tell Them to Stay Home. And it was a campaign because of that, because the people who were older, they needed to be reminded at that time, you have to stay in, and hey, thank God you've got grandkids, check in with them, say hello and see them. And I'm seeing from my own personal experience, you know, Friday night dinner, my friends knew you couldn't make plans until Friday night dinner was over, and there's no leaving early. And now fast forward, and all of us look forward to that dinner. We're not going because, oh my God, I'm going to get grief if I don't go. We're adults now. We don't have to go. We go because we want to go, you know. And now I see Jake on the call. We've got now we have a 5:30 Friday night dinner on Zoom. And this is great because when you talk about family business, it's family and business. And that's why I'm so happy that you guys are chatting about things that are way beyond the scope of real estate. You're talking about life.
Well, and I think that's our connection, quite frankly, with our clients. Like we do residential, and I have to admit, I've tried commercial. I didn't really care for it very much, and one of the reasons was I felt like there was no emotion in it whatsoever. It was numbers, it was business, and as much as I like to think I'm still a business person, I like to have feelings. I do very well with people in emotional moves. That's a strength for me. And, you know, I think those did come from, you know, if I can send a message out to any parent out there, I have to say, as an adult child, keep those like structured enforcements. Don't let your kids control you the best that you can, because that phone call, for example, that my parents insisted we did, when my grandmother passed away in her early 80s, I believe it was, my grandfather was with us till he was 94. I became very close with my grandfather, even though he never lived in Toronto, ever. He wasn't a snowbird, he was an American. He lived in Florida until we moved him to New York. And the fact of the matter is that I was single for most of my life, and he was all of a sudden single, and I knew what it meant to call every day. And I'm sure my brothers and my cousins in New York spoke to him also, but I made a real point. Sometimes I had nothing to say to him, but it was just a call to say, hi, how you doing?
Right, to check in. I see our time is short, and I apologize that I haven't opened the floor. I just had so many questions, and the time has run away from us. Cheryl, I'd love you to close us out with a thought.
Okay, it's not a thought, it really is, I think, something that I have to say about your family. That
Good thing we're not in the same room, Mom.
yeah, it's terrible. Anyway, I think that I have learned wow, this is awful. I've learned a lot from Elise, and just everything she does is the highest of highest, and just happy.
I'll finish her thought, because that's how it rolls. When my mom starts getting emotional, my aunt does it or I do it. So
Right.
what I think she's probably on a road of saying also is one thing that I know I adopted this language, and now, Mom, with all the respect to you too, I give it back to you as well, because I now say, for many years I used to say, I'm doing it Elise Kalles style. It was like an adjective to what I was doing, and that meant the highest of highest. Anything. It was the white glove service. And now, for many years, I've said to my mom, Mom, go away. I'm going to cry. I'm going to do it Cheryl Graff style. Don't worry. So, and we learned that, Michael, from Elise and you and Harv and Corinne and just everyone. And now Jake's part of it, which is, I sent Corinne a message when I saw the first listing with Jake and Corinne on it. And I said, like, I like started crying seeing that. It's just a really, really nice, it's just nice to see, you know?
Well, you know, the one thing I'd like to say, and I've said this to both of you before, so I'm certainly not afraid to say it to the group, and that is that, you know, you guys really put the word class in Class Act. You know, 25 and 35 years, we're talking 60 years between you of commitment and dedication and loyalty. And the way you've conducted yourself together as a team has furthered the reputation of Harvey Kalles Real Estate in the community because of how much you give back. And it's through the small acts from a micro standpoint, it's the equivalent of the phone call to your grandparents. But it's the way that you treat your clients, and it comes back to us. And we hear time and time again, wonderful feedback about how you treat your clients. And Cheryl, you said at the beginning, and it's almost the best way of closing it out. These clients started as clients, but in the end, they became close friends. That to me personally speaks about you.
Thank you.
Really does. It speaks to you and the Cheryl Graff way, and it's something that we can all learn from. And I'm so appreciative that both of you gave your time today, because we certainly have all learned a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the weekend. Thank you, Amelia, from the bottom of our hearts.
Our family to yours.
And back.
Shabbat shalom. Bye.
Bye.